Maya Williams wiped down the last table in her section, her tired feet aching in the worn sneakers she'd been wearing for the past 6 months. The lunch rush at Rosie's diner had been particularly brutal today, with customers seeming more impatient than usual and tips disappointingly sparse. She glanced at the clock on the wall, 2:47 p.m. Just over an hour left in her shift, and then she could finally sit down. The bell above the entrance chimed, and Maya looked up to see a man in an expensive suit walking in. His clothes screamed money, perfectly tailored, crisp lines, shoes that probably cost more than Maya made in a month. He looked completely out of place in the humble diner with its checkered floors and vinyl booths, but Maya had learned not to judge customers by their appearance. Sometimes the richest-looking people were the worst tippers, while the most humble-dressed folks left generous gratuities. The man chose a corner booth, sliding in with practiced ease despite his formal attire. Maya approached with her notepad and forced a smile, though her feet were screaming in protest with each step. "Good afternoon, sir. Welcome to Rosie's. Can I start you off with something to drink?" The man looked up, and Maya was struck by his piercing blue eyes. There was something calculating about his gaze, as if he was studying her. "Coffee, black. And I'll have the meatloaf special." "Coming right up." Maya scribbled down the order and headed to the kitchen. As she walked away, she could feel the man's eyes following her, which made her slightly uncomfortable. She'd been working as a waitress for 3 years since dropping out of nursing school when her mother got sick, and she'd developed a sixth sense about customers. While waiting for the food, Maya couldn't help but steal glances at the mysterious customer. He sat perfectly still, occasionally checking an expensive-looking watch. No phone calls, no scrolling through social media like most people his age. He simply sat and observed, which struck Maya as odd. The cook, Jimmy, slid the plate across the pass-through window. "Meatloaf special for table 7. Maya picked up the plate, noting how Jimmy had taken extra care with the presentation. Even the veteran cook seemed to sense something different about this customer. She approached the table with the steaming plate of food. "Here you go, sir. Meatloaf special with mashed potatoes and green beans. Can I get you anything else?" The man nodded his thanks and began eating methodically. Maya noticed he ate slowly, deliberately, as if he was thinking about something else entirely. She refilled his coffee twice during the meal, each time receiving only a polite nod in acknowledgement. Other customers came and went, but the suited man remained, nursing his coffee long after he'd finished eating. Maya began to worry he might be one of those customers who lingered for hours, occupying valuable table space during what should have been her final rush of the day. At 3:30, just as Maya was starting to clean the coffee machine, the man finally signaled for his check. She quickly printed it out and brought it over, $12.47 for the meal and drinks. "Thank you for dining with us today," Maya said, placing the check on the table. "Take your time." The man reached into his wallet and pulled out what looked like a $20 bill. He placed it on the table without a word and stood to leave. Maya felt a small surge of relief, at least it would be a decent tip to end her shift. But, as the man walked toward the door, something made Maya look more closely at the money he'd left. Her heart sank. It wasn't a $20 bill at all. It was a single dollar bill, crisp and new, sitting next to the $12.47 check. Maya stared at the table in disbelief. A $1 tip? From someone who was clearly wealthy enough to afford a proper gratuity? She'd served him well, kept his coffee full, and been nothing but polite and professional. The man had seemed satisfied with his meal and service. The other waitress, Sandra, walked by and noticed Maya's expression. "What's wrong, honey? You look like someone just told you Christmas was cancelled." Maya pointed to the table. "That gentleman in the expensive suit just left me a $1 tip on a $12 check." Sandra whistled low. "That's rough. Some people have no class, no matter how much money they have. Rich folks can be the worst sometimes." Maya picked up the check and the dollar bill, her hands shaking slightly. She'd been counting on tips today to help cover her mother's medication costs. Every dollar mattered when you were living paycheck to paycheck and supporting a sick parent. The disappointment felt like a physical weight in her chest. As she lifted the dollar bill, something crinkled underneath it. Maya frowned and looked more carefully. There was a small piece of paper folded beneath the money, almost hidden under the plate. She carefully extracted it, thinking it might be a receipt or perhaps something the customer had accidentally dropped. The paper was expensive-looking, thick and cream-colored, folded in half. Maya glanced around to make sure no one was watching, then carefully unfolded it. Written in elegant handwriting were just a few lines: "Your kindness does not go unnoticed. Sometimes the smallest gestures reveal the biggest hearts. This is not about money, it's about character. You passed the test." A friend who believes in second chances. Maya read the note 3 times, her confusion growing with each reading. What test? What did this mean? She looked toward the door, but the mysterious customer had long since disappeared. The note felt substantial in her hands, and she noticed there was something else, a phone number written in small digits at the bottom. "Hey Maya, you okay? Jimmy called from the kitchen. You look like you've seen a ghost." Maya quickly folded the note and slipped it into her apron pocket along with the dollar bill. "I'm fine, just tired. Long day." But she wasn't fine. Questions raced through her mind as she finished her closing duties. Who was that man? What did he mean by a test? And why had he chosen her? She'd served hundreds of customers over the years, but nothing like this had ever happened. Sandra helped her finish wiping down tables and counting the register. "You sure you're all right? You've been quiet since that cheapskate left." Maya forced a smile. "Just thinking about groceries and bills, you know how it is." But that wasn't what she was thinking about at all. As she grabbed her purse from the employee break room and prepared to leave, Maya felt the note burning a hole in her pocket. Should she call the number? Was this some kind of joke? Or worse, could it be dangerous? The evening air was cool as Maya stepped outside Rosie's diner. Her old Toyota Camry sat in the employee parking area, rust spots visible even in the dim light. As she unlocked the car door, Maya pulled out the note one more time, studying it under the streetlight. The handwriting was definitely masculine, confident and flowing. The paper felt expensive, like the kind used for important documents or formal invitations. But it was the message itself that puzzled her most. What test had she unknowingly taken? And what did passing it mean? Maya's phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "Don't forget to pick up my prescription on your way home. Love you, sweetheart." Reality crashed back down on Maya's shoulders. Her mother's medications cost nearly $300 a month, even with insurance. Her part-time job at the diner barely covered their basic expenses, and she'd been struggling to keep up with the mounting medical bills. The dollar tip, insulting as it was, represented real money she needed. But the note suggested something else entirely. Someone had been watching her, evaluating her, and apparently she'd impressed them somehow. As she drove home through the familiar streets of her working-class neighborhood, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that her life was about to change in ways she couldn't imagine. The pharmacy was busy, and Maya waited in line behind an elderly man arguing with the pharmacist about insurance coverage. When her turn came, the pharmacist, Mrs. Chen, smiled sympathetically. "The usual for your mother?" "Yes, please. And I'll need to put it on the payment plan again if that's okay." Mrs. Chen nodded understandingly. Maya wasn't the only customer struggling with prescription costs. As Maya signed the payment agreement, she thought about the mysterious note in her pocket. Whatever the man's intentions were, they couldn't be worse than her current financial situation. Maya's mother, Dorothy, was waiting in her favorite chair when Maya arrived home. At 62, Dorothy had been battling diabetes and heart problems for the past 5 years, and the medications kept her stable but were gradually draining their modest savings. "How was work today, baby?" Dorothy asked, accepting the pharmacy bag gratefully. Maya kissed her mother's forehead. "The usual. Tips were light, but we'll manage." She didn't mention the strange encounter or the note still hidden in her pocket. Her mother worried enough about their finances without adding mysterious billionaires to the mix. As Maya prepared a simple dinner of pasta and canned sauce, she found herself replaying every detail of her interaction with the suited man. Had she done something special? She'd simply provided the same courteous service she gave every customer. She'd kept his coffee filled, been polite and professional, and hadn't shown any judgment about his choice to dine at their humble establishment. Perhaps that was the point, treating him like any other customer despite his obvious wealth. After dinner and helping her mother with her evening medications, Maya finally had a moment alone in her small bedroom. She pulled out the note and stared at the phone number. Her hands trembled as she considered her options. She could ignore it completely and pretend the whole thing never happened. Or she could take a leap of faith and dial the number. The practical part of her mind warned against calling unknown numbers, especially from mysterious customers who left cryptic notes. But the desperate part of her mind, the part that calculated bills and worried about prescription costs, whispered that she had nothing left to lose. Maya picked up her phone and stared at the screen for a long moment. Whatever this was about, whatever test she had supposedly passed, it had to be better than struggling to make ends meet while watching her mother's health decline. With trembling fingers, she began to dial the number from the note. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Maya held her breath, not sure what she was hoping for or dreading. Just as she was about to hang up, thinking perhaps this was all an elaborate prank, a familiar voice answered. Maya Williams. I was hoping you would call. It was him, the man from the diner. Maya's heart raced as she realized he somehow knew her name, though she was certain she hadn't introduced herself during their brief interaction. How do you know my name? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I know many things, Maya. But, more importantly, I know what kind of person you are. That's why I left you the note. We need to meet and talk properly. There's something I'd like to offer you, but it can't be discussed over the phone. Maya's mind raced with possibilities, none of them seeming entirely safe or sensible. I don't even know who you are. My name is Alexander Sterling. Perhaps you've heard of Sterling Industries? Maya's breath caught. Sterling Industries was one of the largest corporations in the state, known for everything from real estate development to technology investments. If this man was really Alexander Sterling, he was worth billions of dollars. But what could a billionaire possibly want with a struggling waitress? I don't understand, Maya managed to say. You will. Tomorrow is your day off, correct? Meet me at the Meridian Hotel downtown, room 1247, at 2 p.m. Come alone, and, Maya? Yes? Bring the note. Maya spent the entire night tossing and turning, replaying the phone conversation with Alexander Sterling over and over in her mind. She'd researched him online until nearly 3 a.m., finding dozens of articles about the reclusive billionaire who'd built his empire from nothing. Photos showed a man who could indeed have been her mysterious customer, the same piercing blue eyes, the same confident bearing that spoke of immense wealth and power. But what unsettled Maya most was what she learned about Sterling's reputation. He was known for being brilliant but ruthless in business, someone who didn't waste time on charity or sentiment. Multiple articles described him as calculating, always several steps ahead of his competitors. So why had such a man chosen to test a small-town waitress? The morning dragged by painfully. Maya helped her mother with breakfast and medications, then spent hours cleaning their small apartment to keep her mind occupied. Every few minutes, she found herself checking the clock, anxiety building as 2 p.m. approached. Part of her considered not going at all. What if this was some elaborate scheme? What if Sterling had ulterior motives that had nothing to do with kindness or opportunity? But the rational part of her mind kept returning to their desperate financial situation. Her mother's next specialist appointment was scheduled for the following week, and they still owed nearly $800 from the last visit. The rent was due in 5 days, and Maya was already behind on the electric bill. Whatever Sterling wanted, it couldn't be worse than watching her mother's health decline while they struggled to afford basic care. At 1:30 p.m., Maya stood in front of her bedroom mirror, trying to decide what to wear to meet a billionaire. Her wardrobe consisted mainly of work uniforms and casual clothes that had seen better days. Finally, she settled on a simple black dress she'd worn to job interviews. It was modest but presentable, and it was the nicest thing she owned. The Meridian Hotel dominated the downtown skyline, its gleaming glass facade reflecting the afternoon sun. Maya had driven past it countless times but never imagined she'd actually step inside. The lobby was vast and intimidating, with marble floors and crystal chandeliers that probably cost more than Maya's annual salary. Well-dressed guests moved through the space with casual confidence, making Maya acutely aware of her second-hand dress and worn shoes. At the concierge desk, Maya hesitated. "I'm here to see Alexander Sterling in room 1247. The impeccably dressed woman behind the desk didn't even blink. "Of course. Mr. Sterling is expecting you. The elevators are just to your right. Enjoy your visit." Maya's hands shook as she pressed the button for the 12th floor. The elevator was mirrored on 3 sides, and she caught sight of herself looking pale and nervous. She pulled out the mysterious note one more time, reading the elegant handwriting that had brought her to this moment. Room 1247 was at the end of a long, quiet hallway. Maya knocked softly, and the door opened almost immediately. Alexander Sterling stood before her, looking exactly as he had in the diner but somehow more imposing in the luxurious hotel setting. He'd changed from his business suit into expensive casual wear, slacks and a button-down shirt that probably cost more than Maya made in a week. "Maya. Thank you for coming. Please, sit down." He gestured toward a seating area near the window overlooking the city. The hotel suite was larger than Maya's entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, and the furniture looked like it belonged in a high-end showroom. Maya perched nervously on the edge of an elegant sofa, clutching her purse in her lap. Sterling took the chair across from her, studying her with those penetrating blue eyes. "You look nervous. Wouldn't you be? I don't understand why I'm here or what you want from me." Sterling smiled, and, for the first time, he looked almost human rather than intimidatingly powerful. "I suppose that's fair. Let me start with an explanation. Yesterday at the diner wasn't a coincidence, Maya. I chose that restaurant specifically, and I chose to sit in your section deliberately." Maya's stomach dropped. "You were watching me? How? Why?" "Not watching you personally, but your situation came to my attention through certain channels. You see, I'm in the process of establishing a foundation, something I've never done before. It will focus on identifying and supporting individuals who demonstrate exceptional character despite facing significant hardships." "I don't understand. I'm just a waitress. I haven't done anything exceptional." Sterling leaned forward, his expression intense. "Haven't you? Let me tell you what I know about Maya Williams. 3 years ago, you were 6 months away from completing nursing school with a 3.8 GPA. You had job offers waiting and a bright future ahead of you. But, when your mother was diagnosed with diabetes and heart disease, you dropped everything to care for her. You took a job as a waitress because it offered flexible hours and health insurance, even though it meant abandoning your career dreams." Maya stared at him, shocked. "How do you know all that? I make it my business to know things. But, here's what impressed me most: in 3 years of working at that diner, you've never once been late, never called in sick even when you were clearly unwell yourself, and, according to every customer review I could find, you've never been anything less than kind and professional, even with difficult customers. Those are basic job requirements. Anyone would do the same." Sterling shook his head. "You'd be surprised how wrong you are. Last month, when that family with the special needs child came in and their son had a meltdown, do you remember how you handled it?" Maya blinked, surprised he knew about that incident. "The Petersons. Their little boy Jake has autism. He got overwhelmed by the noise and started crying. And, instead of being annoyed or asking them to leave, you turned off the music, dimmed the lights, and sat with the child until he calmed down. You even gave him crayons and paper to draw with. The family wrote a letter to your manager saying it was the first time they'd been able to eat out as a family in over a year." Maya felt tears prick her eyes at the memory. Jake just needed someone to understand that he wasn't being difficult on purpose. He was scared and overstimulated. Exactly. And when elderly Mrs. Morrison comes in every Tuesday and orders the same meal but can never remember her purse, what do? I pay for her coffee and pie. It's only $4, and she's probably forgotten because of her memory issues. Her daughter always comes back later in the week to settle up. Sterling nodded approvingly. $4 might not seem like much to most people, but it's significant when you're living paycheck to paycheck. Yet you've been covering Mrs. Morrison's meals for 8 months, never mentioning it to your manager or making the elderly woman feel embarrassed about her condition. Maya shifted uncomfortably. How do you know all this? Have you been spying on me? Not spying. Researching. When I decided to start this foundation, I knew I needed to find the right people, individuals who demonstrate genuine goodness without expecting recognition or reward. Your manager, customers, and even your coworkers all spoke about your character without my having to ask leading questions. But why me specifically? There must be thousands of good people struggling financially. Sterling stood and walked to the window, gazing out at the city below. Do you know anything about my background, Maya? I read some articles last night. You built Sterling Industries from nothing, started in a garage with borrowed money. That's the sanitized version. The truth is messier. I grew up in foster care, bounced between families who saw me as a paycheck rather than a child. By the time I aged out of the system at 18, I was angry, bitter, and convinced that the world owed me everything I could take from it. Maya listened intently, surprised by Sterling's vulnerability. I built my company through ruthless determination and a complete lack of concern for anyone but myself. I stepped on people, broke promises, and justified every harsh decision by pointing to my difficult childhood. For 30 years, I told myself that kindness was weakness and that only the strong survived. Sterling turned back to face Maya. But, last year, something happened that changed my perspective entirely. I had a heart attack, not a minor one, but the kind that makes you face your own mortality. While I was lying in that hospital bed, I realized that despite all my wealth and success, I was completely alone. No friends, no real relationships, no legacy beyond a business empire that would be forgotten within a generation. I'm sorry. That must have been terrifying. It was transformative. I began to question everything about how I'd lived my life. I started thinking about the people who had shown me kindness over the years, the few bright spots in an otherwise selfish existence. There was a nurse in the children's hospital where I stayed briefly when I was 8. She used to read to me and bring me extra cookies from the cafeteria. She probably doesn't even remember me, but her small acts of kindness kept me from giving up hope entirely. Maya felt a chill of recognition. You're looking for people like that nurse. Exactly. People who show genuine compassion not because it benefits them, but because it's simply who they are. I want to find these individuals and give them the opportunities and support they deserve. But, first, I needed to develop a way to identify them. The test at the diner. Sterling nodded. I've been visiting restaurants, stores, and service establishments throughout the city, observing how employees treat customers. Most are polite enough, professional in the basic sense. But very few go beyond the minimum requirements of their job to show real human kindness. So you pretended to be a cheap customer to see how I'd react? Partly. But the real test wasn't about the tip, it was about how you treated me throughout the entire interaction. You could have been dismissive when you saw my expensive clothes in your humble diner. You could have been overly servile, hoping for a large tip. Instead, you treated me with the same courtesy and respect you'd show any customer. You were attentive without being intrusive, professional without being cold. Maya thought back to the previous day, trying to remember her exact interactions with Sterling. I just did my job. You did more than that. When you noticed I was sitting alone for an extended period, you checked on me twice to make sure I didn't need anything, but you didn't rush me or make me feel unwelcome for occupying the table. You refilled my coffee without being asked, and, when I seemed lost in thought, you gave me space rather than trying to make small talk. Those are basic customer service skills. Sterling sat back down, leaning forward earnestly. Maya, in the past 6 months, I've conducted the same test in over 40 different establishments. Do you know how many servers treated me with the same natural, unpretentious kindness that you did? Maya shook her head. 3. Including you. And, of those 3, you were the only one who showed the same level of care and attention to every customer, not just the one who might have money. Maya felt overwhelmed by the weight of Sterling's words. What exactly are you offering me? Sterling reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. I'd like to offer you a position as the director of my new foundation. The Sterling Foundation for Human Kindness will identify and support individuals who demonstrate exceptional character. Your job would be to develop programs, oversee distribution of resources, and help identify worthy recipients. Maya's mind reeled. I don't have experience running a foundation. I never even finished college. You have something more valuable than a degree. You have genuine empathy and the ability to recognize goodness in others. As for experience, you'd have a full staff and expert consultants to handle the technical aspects. What I need from you is your heart and your judgment. What would the salary be? Maya asked, feeling almost guilty for asking such a practical question. Sterling smiled. $200,000 annually to start, with full health benefits for you and your mother, plus a housing allowance that would allow you to move somewhere more suitable for her medical needs. Maya felt dizzy. $200,000 was more money than she'd ever dreamed of making. It would solve every financial worry that had kept her awake at night for the past 3 years. There's more, Sterling continued. The foundation will also provide a one-time grant of $50,000 to help you get established, pay off any debts, cover your mother's medical expenses, whatever you need for a fresh start. Why? Maya whispered. Why would you trust me with so much responsibility and money? You barely know me. Sterling's expression grew serious. Because yesterday, you passed a test that 95% of people fail. You showed kindness without expecting reward, treated a stranger with dignity regardless of his behavior toward you, and demonstrated the kind of character that can't be taught or faked. Maya stared at the folder in Sterling's hands, knowing that inside it lay a future she'd never imagined possible. But something held her back. What if I'm not who you think I am? What if you're wrong about my character? Sterling's smile was warm and genuine. Then, I'll have made a mistake. But, I built a billion-dollar empire by trusting my judgment about people, Maya. I'm not wrong about you. He handed her the folder. Take this home. Review the foundation's mission statement, the job description, and the contract. Talk it over with your mother. I know this is overwhelming, but I believe you're exactly what this foundation needs. Maya accepted the folder with trembling hands. When do you need an answer? There's no rush. This is a life-changing decision, and I want you to be absolutely certain. Take as much time as you need. As Maya prepared to leave, Sterling stopped her with one final question. Maya, what did you think when you saw that dollar bill tip? Maya hesitated, then decided on honesty. I was disappointed. Not angry, exactly, but hurt. I thought I'd provided good service, and it felt like a rejection of my efforts. But, you didn't complain to your coworker about the cheap customer? No. Everyone's fighting battles I know nothing about. Maybe you were having a bad day, or maybe the dollar was all you could afford. It wasn't my place to judge. Sterling nodded slowly. And that response, Maya, is exactly why you're perfect for this job. Maya drove home in a daze, the folder from Alexander Sterling sitting on the passenger seat like a beacon of possibility. The weight of the documents seemed to make her car feel different, as if even her old Toyota understood that everything had changed. She found herself driving slower than usual, afraid that moving too quickly might somehow shatter the surreal bubble of the past 2 hours. When she reached her apartment building, Maya sat in the parking lot for several minutes, staring up at the modest two-bedroom unit she shared with her mother. The building was old but well-maintained, and their landlord was understanding about occasional late rent payments. It had been home for 3 years, but now Maya found herself imagining something different, a house with a yard, perhaps, somewhere her mother could sit outside and enjoy fresh air without worrying about the noise from the upstairs neighbors. Dorothy was napping in her recliner when Maya quietly entered the apartment. Her mother looked fragile in sleep, her breathing slightly labored in the way that had become more noticeable over the past few months. Maya studied her mother's face, noting the stress lines that seemed deeper than they should be for a 62-year-old woman. Financial worry had aged Dorothy prematurely, and Maya felt a familiar pang of guilt for not being able to provide better for the woman who had sacrificed everything for her. Maya settled at their small kitchen table and carefully opened Sterling's folder. The foundation's mission statement was printed on expensive letterhead, the kind of paper that spoke of serious business and legitimate enterprise. As she read, Maya felt her excitement growing alongside her disbelief. The Sterling Foundation for Human Kindness would provide direct financial assistance to individuals and families facing hardship through no fault of their own. But, unlike traditional charities, it would focus specifically on people who had demonstrated exceptional character despite their circumstances. The foundation would offer everything from emergency assistance to long-term educational and career support, all based on nominations from community members who had witnessed acts of genuine kindness. The job description was equally impressive. As director, Maya would oversee a staff of 12 employees, including social workers, financial advisors, and community outreach specialists. She would have decision-making authority over grants up to $25,000, with larger amounts requiring board approval. The position included a comprehensive benefits package that would cover not just Maya's health insurance, but her mother's as well, including dental and vision coverage they'd never been able to afford. Maya read through the salary and benefit information 3 times, unable to quite believe the numbers. $200,000 annually was more than she'd made in the past 3 years combined. The housing allowance alone was more than her current salary at the diner. But it was the personal letter from Sterling, handwritten on the same expensive paper as his original note, that truly moved her. "Dear Maya," it began, "I know this opportunity must seem overwhelming, perhaps even too good to be true. I understand your hesitation. You've learned not to trust in fairy tale endings because life has taught you that good things are earned through hard work and sacrifice, not given freely. But sometimes, good people deserve good things simply because they are good. You've spent 3 years putting your mother's needs before your own dreams, working a job that was beneath your capabilities because it provided the insurance and flexibility you needed to care for her. You've maintained your dignity and kindness even when customers were rude, when tips were poor, when the stress of financial worry kept you awake at night. I'm not offering you this position because I feel sorry for you. I'm offering it because I believe you have exactly the qualities needed to identify others who deserve support and opportunity. Your own struggles have given you empathy. Your own character has proven your judgment. Your own sacrifices have demonstrated your commitment to something greater than yourself. Whatever you decide, please know that our meeting has reminded me why I wanted to start this foundation in the first place. You've renewed my faith in human goodness, and, for that, I'll always be grateful." Maya wiped away tears as she finished reading. She'd grown accustomed to being overlooked, to having her efforts taken for granted. The idea that someone had been watching and had seen value in her simple acts of kindness felt almost miraculous. "Maya? Is everything all right, baby?" Dorothy had awakened and was studying her daughter with concern. Maya quickly wiped her eyes and tried to compose herself, but her mother's sharp gaze missed nothing. "You look like you've been crying. Did something happen at work?" Maya took a deep breath. There was no way to ease into this conversation gradually. "Mama, I need to tell you about something incredible that happened yesterday." For the next hour, Maya recounted every detail of her encounter with Alexander Sterling, from the mysterious customer at the diner to the overwhelming job offer. She showed her mother the foundation materials, the job description, and Sterling's personal letter. Dorothy listened without interruption, her expression shifting from confusion to amazement to something that looked almost like fear. "This sounds too good to be true, Maya. Are you sure this man is legitimate?" Rich people don't usually give away high-paying jobs to strangers. Maya had anticipated her mother's skepticism. I researched him online, Mama. Alexander Sterling is one of the wealthiest men in the state. Sterling Industries owns shopping centers, office buildings, technology companies. It's a real empire. And the Meridian Hotel suite was definitely expensive. Everything about him checked out. Dorothy frowned. But why you? I'm not saying you don't deserve good things, baby, but why would a billionaire choose a waitress to run his foundation? Maya had been asking herself the same question. He said he was looking for people with genuine character, people who show kindness without expecting reward. Apparently, I passed some kind of test. By giving good customer service? By treating him like a human being rather than a potential source of money. He said most people either dismissed him for being in an expensive suit at a working-class diner, or they were overly servile because they hoped for a big tip. Dorothy picked up the job description and studied it carefully. After several minutes of silence, she looked up at her daughter. Maya, this salary would change everything for us. I know. You could quit that diner job that's wearing you down. You could go back to school if you wanted. We could afford a house with a proper yard, maybe even get me into better specialists. Maya nodded, feeling the weight of possibility. But what if I'm not qualified? What if I take this job and fail? Sterling would lose his investment, and we'd be worse off than before. Dorothy reached across the table and took her daughter's hands. Maya Williams, you listen to me. You've been managing our household budget for 3 years, stretching every dollar until it screams. You've dealt with insurance companies, medical billing departments, and prescription assistance programs. You've coordinated my care between 3 different doctors while working full-time and keeping us both fed and housed. That's not the same as running a foundation. Isn't it? You've been identifying people who deserve help and finding ways to provide it. Remember when the Hendersons' house burned down last year? You organized the collection at the diner, contacted local businesses for donations, and helped them navigate the insurance process. When little Sarah Chen needed surgery her family couldn't afford, you started that fundraising campaign that raised over $15,000. Maya had forgotten about those efforts. At the time, it seemed like natural responses to neighbors in need. You've got more experience helping people than you realize, Dorothy continued. And the Sterling man is right about your character. I've watched you give away tips to customers who couldn't afford their meals, seen you stay late to help new employees learn their jobs, witnessed you treat every person who walks into that diner with equal respect and kindness. You really think I could do this? Dorothy smiled, and, for the first time in months, she looked genuinely hopeful. I think you've been doing it all your life. This would just make it official and give you the